and welcome to Nutrition Science Bites. This week, it's my great pleasure to talk to Sally Walker. Now, Sally is the president of Sports Dietitians Australia, which many people don't realise is a specialised group of the dietitians who are working with athletes and in the world of sport. But Sally is especially qualified because she's been the dietitian to the New South Wales Institute of Sport for many years. But Sally was the dietitian to the Olympic Games in Tokyo and then two lots of Commonwealth Games, 2018 and 2022. And in addition, Sally also has her business, CBD Health in Sydney. Is that the right title, Sally?
Yes, that's correct.
And welcome. And can I start by asking you, being the dietitian to the Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games, how nerve-wracking, exciting was that?
Yeah. Well, very, considering all of them were done sort of mid-global pandemic. So just to add a bit of pressure to a very high-pressure situation. So,
Yeah.
really special experience to be part of a whole of an athlete's journey. So as a dietitian, you sort of help them prepare and help them set up, but to be there at competition and to sort of see them as humans and individuals and be able to connect with them in their journey, in their preparation, sort of around food and through that space where they were just eating and preparing, where it wasn't about education. And it was a really special time to be involved with sport through that, and great experience, a huge range of athletes to sort of connect with and work with different demands and styles and schedules. So it was a really special time in my career that I really value.
Yeah, congratulations on that. And we're lucky to have your expertise today, Sally. But the question that we want to answer today comes from someone in the general public. So this is an older woman who's still jogging and going to the gym. And she asked me, as like a recreational athlete, that's how she described herself, someone who really loves physical activity, there's lots of information out there about supplements. And she wondered if she should be taking supplements to make sure she can still do physical activity and all of that. And I thought, well, we really need an expert to help us on that. But then it also got me thinking, well, what's the difference between someone who is like, I think we know an Olympic athlete, but is this person actually a recreational athlete, or would you call them an amateur athlete? Is there actually a definition?
Yeah, well, that's probably not a dictionary definition, but it's all linked to context really, and how people want to define themselves as an athlete. And it could take on many forms, from the categorization and actually if they're ranked in a squad or in a national team or that sort of thing, to when they become an athlete. Or I think it's more to be able to work with, and when we get to the supplements part, sort of looking at the training load that they've got as well, in that whether the type and style of training is progressing towards something, there's progressive overload, and it's working towards something. That may also be another definition if they're working towards a competition or an event or an outcome. But then if we're just looking at physical demands, could an athlete be a labourer who's working on a building site, pushing wheelbarrows full of cement up and down a hill all day?
Yeah.
To be able to not be limited by the term athlete in seeking support and seeking help for energy demands and energy requirements. You don't want that to be a limiting step, because in the clinic and working with general public, there's a lot of people that say, but I'm not an athlete, so I only need a little bit of help. And they've got quite big training demands and big goals and things that they're working towards. So there's no reason why they shouldn't have support too.
Can I ask you about that? What is a lot of physical activity or training demands? Because, you're right. You go past a building site, see, wow, that's pretty hard going work. So what would be considered a lot of activity or training?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got the recommendations for physical exercise. So that would sort of be the basis of just keeping your body moving. So anything sort of exceeding and beyond that, with training each day of the week, multiple hours of training. So if it's sort of 2-3 hours worth of training, back-to-back training, if someone's training in the morning, in the afternoon, sort of the frequency and the turnaround of training that they're doing. But again, that's sort of lending itself to what physical demands I would have and what stress the body's being put under to go, gosh, that was hard. I've been pushed in that training session. I need to recover and come back to my natural state from that. So if someone's exercising every day and they may be doing it more of a steady state and not putting their body through a larger stress or stressor from the training that they're doing, they might need to be as sort of aggressive with their recovery to get their body back to that natural state. So it's thinking about the demands on the body more so than the actual training, more so than the actual sort of status and categorization.
So that makes sense. But the question I really wanted to ask you is about the supplements then. So does somebody who's training a lot and putting demands on their body, do they need supplements? I know that's like a massive question, but what would you say if I've come to see you and I'm asking?
Yes. Yeah. No, definitely there's if there's a need for it, yes. And what we need to think about with supplements, that if we've discussed training and how training can vary and load can vary, time, amount, stress. So if it's really high intensity training or if it's more longer endurance, like long bike rides versus interval sprints sort of thing, or our labourer who's got very busy days, if we look at supplements and the role that supplements can have, it's to support that training. So no one's sort of having supplements and sitting on the couch and not doing anything and then getting all these benefits that supplements offer. So it's the output of the work that you do that is giving you sort of gains, for want of a better term, but sort of progression and results, not the supplements itself, but the supplements are then supporting the training for when you do that work to then get that outcome. So on their own, supplements as a singular thing, not so much, but combined and partnered with training, that's when they can have a greater impact. So the value of that is connecting the supplement with the training type to see that A plus B is going to get you to C sort of thing.
That kind of makes sense,
and working
Sally.
as more of a unit.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Like if you're someone who's actually not particularly active and you've read about these sports supplements and as you say, you're a couch potato, you're sitting on the couch, downing supplements is not magically going to turn you into an athlete.
Yes.
But somebody who's perhaps getting injured or just wants to fuel their body to perform well, that kind of makes sense. So when somebody comes in and say, hey, do I need supplements? What's the value of the food they're eating versus the supplement? Is that something that you factor in?
Yeah, that's sort of an addition to my previous point that the supplements help support the training. Like supplements aside, so does food. Like that's what food does. If you can get your timing of meals right and the distribution of food over the day, the right types of macronutrients to suit what the body needs at that time, like you're most of the way there just with food, and then the supplements may just give that bit of extra lift along. What I see most frequently with people who are training both in the elite professional athletes I worked with and sort of just busy professional active people, they train and they eat, and the two things just happen separately rather than connecting the two and actually aligning, what am I actually fueling? Is this meal playing a role in the training that I'm going to be doing to be able to get an outcome from that? So when we're looking at food in the first instance, all of those things have to be aligned first, because if you're not fueling before or after training with adequate carbohydrates and protein and carbohydrates afterwards, that supplement's not going to have the impact that it's stated to have. So you have to sort of line everything up and then layer on supplements when the body's ready for it and when there's an actual need for it to be able to then see that impact from the supplements and see that outcome.
Yeah, that completely makes sense to me, Sally. I often talk about the body, for people to think about it as a bit like being a car. And if you are an endurance athlete, it's a bit like going, right, well, I'm going to drive right across Australia now, but you don't check your fuel, you don't check the water, you haven't had the car serviced, you haven't thought about where the petrol stations are, and then expecting... And then being surprised when your car breaks down.
You put subwoofers on it, and you've painted it red, and you've made it look all fancy, but it's not going to go anywhere.
Oh, I like that. I like that addition. So can we move then? So we're going to assume then that people got their diet all tuned, and I'm already thinking, wow, I think if you're really this type of person wanting to improve your performance, you really should go and see a sports dietitian. But
Yeah,
let's
definitely.
think about that. Okay, they've already done the diet. So there are
Yes.
so many supplements out there. I was looking to see if I could get a bit of an idea, and I found the information from the USA that says, depending on the year, anywhere between like 40 and 80 billion Australian dollars equivalent.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm thinking
mental.
that can't be that many athletes who really need this supplement. So can you, give us a bit of an idea of some of the common supplements, or how do you work out whether or not a supplement's legit, like as
Yes.
the ordinary person?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe don't look on social media then because
Okay.
it's like all angles just telling you what to have. And, it what works for one person, and that's why earlier I said it depends on the need, really sort of dialing that into what's my body actually like asking for, or what gap is it trying to fill. And that's what people think, that with supplements it'll just be the sum of all the parts, and this has got a good message behind it, and everyone's saying to have all these things. So if I have them, I'll automatically get this outcome without putting that whole bigger picture in place of what's my training loads, what's my diet, what's my lifestyle, what's my physiology and my makeup actually looking like, to then layer this supplement on. And that can be a trap for people when they've just got really good marketing behind the supplements to be really convincing of people, like, I want that outcome, so I'll take that supplement, without knowing sort of the work and the process that needs to be in place to be able to get to that point. So in people trying to just decrease the noise, they really need to go back to themselves to be like, where am I at? What do I need? So if that's a person who is training a lot in the gym, they're eating quite well, they've got a good training program, but they feel like they're just struggling to get stronger, that presents more of a need to say, hey, maybe something like creatine can help sort of push you to that next level with the type of training that you're doing, because there's a good alignment there. Similarly, with someone who may need iron, if they're like, I'm eating really well, I'm training well, I'm sleeping well, I'm just still so fatigued, okay, we'll get a blood test, we'll get more understanding of you and where you're at to understand your needs, and then we can use supplements really effectively then to sort of fill those gaps and say, well, this is an iron supplement which will help because there's a need for it. So,
And is that common, Sally? Is that common that an athlete could be iron deficient?
Yeah, especially athletes who do high impact sport, female athletes quite frequently, because they've got greater demands for iron as well. There will be an increase in iron loss through training, through sweat and training loads in that regard. So yeah, quite frequently iron can contribute to
Well, that sounds
needs
like
of
a
athletes.
really important one to check. Can we just come back to the creatine?
Yeah.
So how can you assess if an athlete needs creatine, and what does the evidence say that it does for those people who need it?
Yeah. Creatine is one of the most researched and effective supplements out there. So it's, again, that's when you weigh up, like, yes, it's efficacious, yes, it works and it's impactful, but do I need it? Again, looking at the type of training someone's doing. So creatine is a supplement, in sort of layman's terms, it's sort of like the spark plug to get the car moving. So if we
Right.
go back to our earlier analogy,
Yep.
that kicks things off, and then sort of blood glucose levels and carbohydrates come through and sort of really get us moving. So if someone's doing repeated sprint type efforts, power moves, like in the gym
Weightlifting?
and in resistance training type thing of regular heavy sets, it helps that recovery phase between sets. So then when you're ready to go again, you've got greater recovery, greater ability to push yourself in training. So then again, it's, if you're training harder with that support, that's where you'll see the gains, and that's where you'll see improvements in strength, because you're able to do the work.
And can I just ask you a question as a non-sports dietitian?
Yes.
So when you talk about recovery,
Yes.
what do you mean by recovery? Because for me, I'm thinking, is recovery when I just feel better? Or is that something in my body that can be defined as my body has recovered from that heavy duty workout I just did?
Yeah. Recovery, it's a broad term actually. There's lots of these things, that words and terms that can be defined by many ways, but there's sort of that instant recovery of pulling your, like, recovery between sets so that your heart rate might come down again. And then there's sort of more long-term recovery and recovery between training sessions as well. So in looking at frequent protein distribution, because your muscle turnovers increase. So with training, you're increasing your muscle turnover. So having adequate protein there to be able to mend that damage. So there's the short-term recovery, as I say, of heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, to pull that back to recovery to be at more of a baseline level. And then there's that sort of physical recovery long-term after you've done training to then be ready to train again the next time. Because if
That
that's
makes
not
sense.
done, effectively the next time you train, you might be a little bit under par, and then the next time, and so you're not actually
Builds
getting
up.
yourself in a state to improve.
That makes sense. And the more you talk, the more I'm kind of thinking, if you are, an athlete who's seeking to improve their performance or win a race, really do
Yeah.
go and see a sports dietitian.
Yes,
Sally, can
definitely.
I fire off a whole bunch of supplements that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
or I heard people talk about or they've asked me and I go, well, I'm not really sure. I'd have to go and look. And can you tell me if there's any evidence? So recently, again, as soon as there's any international tennis competition, pickle juice seems
Mm-hmm.
to come to the fore. Now, it seems to me that is not a pleasant thing to drink. So what's the evidence for pickle juice?
No, it's not for a cocktail hour, that's for sure. So, I mean, before I get into like the specifics, I do want to just call out the work of like the AIS supplement framework, which really helps, I
Right.
guess, from an elite perspective, but to look at the efficacy of supplements to see, has it been scientifically proven to have an impact? And
Yep.
there's a categorization system of A, B, C, and D. So A supplements are like, there is enough science for us to say that's an effective supplement to take. Like that actually has an impact on performance, specifically with the eye of performance. So some may have an
Right.
impact, but not necessarily performance, but still be impactful. B, we're pretty sure there's a benefit and sort of we're getting to it. And then C, maybe not so much. And then D, absolute no-go, that's banned. Like, don't have them sort of thing. So that's sort of what we work off as sports dietitians largely, is that supplement framework.
If there's a list of those, and I could put a
Yes.
link in the show notes so people can come back
Yeah,
and look at it.
yeah. It's
So-
very science-based and quite scientific. So, but even just to group the supplements together, it helps to understand that.
What's an
We'll go back to pickle juice because that has been proven to be effective for cramps in particular. So as the body's
Wow.
starting to cramp, that's the body's way of going, it's sort of wringing itself out, going, I really need some energy. And the muscles are really hanging on tightly. And it's to give them sort of a release. So the pickle juice and the makeup of the pickle juice, it has a neuron effect. So it decreases the excitability of the neurons to sort of create that
Relax.
release. Yeah, I think if you're cramping and in pain and your options are pickle juice or the cramp, that might make it a little bit more appealing than
Yeah.
most other times. But even
But Sally, wouldn't you think too, like if it's the cramp or the pain,
Yeah.
but you've got to drink pickle juice, but you're going to win a chance of winning Wimbledon.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. That
Yes.
makes sense
Yep.
why you
And
see
that may
it.
also be another definition of athlete too, is just the things and the lengths that they go to with the elite level athletes of how much more they can push themselves because of how much it
Yeah.
means to them. So
Yeah. Have you got anything else in that A list that might be
Yes.
a bit easier to handle?
So a lot of the A group will have sports foods. So sports foods are things like sports drinks, gels, protein powders, so whey protein powders. Creatine is an A group supplement. So again, just one of the most tried and tested supplements. Bicarb is one. So this is another one for the extreme athletes. So bicarb, that is a buffer. So when you really work hard and things are burning and things are really burning, having bicarb and a strategy for bicarb loading ahead of the event that you're doing can help to lessen the pain, I guess, and sort of act as a bit of a buffer to that lactic acid and that lactic burn that you're getting. But that's one that, while yes, it may be effective, it's probably not going to be one that the everyday athlete does every day because of the impact it can have on gut and osmolarity. And if it's done poorly, you'll know about it in the most instance. So there's a few different levels to, again, those A group supplements in just accessibility and just logistics of taking them and how you actually access them also.
Sally, would I be right in thinking that if you're a sports person who's considering these A group supplements, then you really do want to be working with, the people who are supporting you, your dietitian, your coaches? Because I'm thinking about the box of bicarb soda I got in the cupboard. And one, it's high in sodium, and I'm thinking, I reckon you might be sick drinking that. So not for the uninitiated, and with it.
Yes. And a lot of these supplements too, and they'll get it in the clinic and regular athletes. Oh, it's competition day, so I'm just going to have some gels now and I'm going to start taking caffeine, and I've never had it before, but it's competition day, so I need to include these supplements. And that's also probably another misuse of supplements in you've got to practice them in training first. Like regardless of, again, your level of athlete or level of training, if you're working towards an event, any sort of supplements, you want to see what impact it has on the body, because you wouldn't also want to be like, oh, I'm cramping in my marathon, I'll have pickle juice, and then you're just throwing up for the rest of the time because it just has not sat well with you, sort of thing.
You haven't trained with it.
Yeah, you've got to individualize it so that to say that it's right for me, it actually does shift the dial in how my performance is going or just how I feel day to day. So that's going to
makes complete sense. Now, you just said gels and caffeine. Where are they in that list of A to D?
So caffeine is an A group supplement, but that's a dose response thing. So a lot of these other ones, they can sort of be in the background. Caffeine for performance, you need to get the timing right. So when I was working with AFL teams, if they'd have caffeine in sort of the last quarter to give themselves a lift, it sort of wouldn't kick in until the game was finished. So you're like, if you're going to have caffeine, have it before you sort of half an hour before you really need the energy, not like, oh, I need it now, depending on how you take it. But caffeine's something that you want to time right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And is caffeine one you can get wrong? I remember a controversy in the Olympics where someone had lots and lots of caffeine in their blood and that was illegal. Is that a dose one?
Back in the day, there was a phase where caffeine was illegal, but then because it's found so frequently in food, it's just too hard to sort of monitor and maintain. So it can be used. The thing with caffeine is the more you have, the more you need to get a stimulus from it. So if you're really caffeining up and then you're like, well, that's not doing anything, I need to have more, then you're getting to really risky levels of very high caffeine before and around training. So again, as much as, yes, caffeine's in coffee and lots of other things and it's a good benefit to some training, if you're, again, working towards something or building up, like timing it and using it smartly rather than just, I'll have my coffee, like actually considering what role it plays in your whole plan, will have more of a performance benefit.
Yeah, so I think the picture you're painting for us very clearly is that, just don't experiment one off. You really need a strategy with these things. Now, you said gels, and I've seen people riding bikes or sometimes you see them sucking on gels in, when they televise marathons and things.
Yes.
So what category are they in?
Yeah, so they're an A. They are, again, that sort of sports food sort of realm. So they're largely just carbohydrates. So with carbohydrates when you're training, and this is why I say it makes a difference to understand the type of training, the time of training that you're doing. So even eating adequate carbohydrates, they're going to start to be depleted by 90 minutes, 2 hours. You'll have no glycogen and carbohydrate stores left. So if you're then running for 3-4 hours, you're going to want to top that up, preferably before you really sunk out, but to be topping up your carbohydrate stores so your body is using that as the primary fuel source for your body and for your brain to function. So carbohydrates are essential during activity, and it provides an easy way to be able to get that in the system, because when you're training, blood flow will move away from the gut. So if you're eating food or even having a banana or a muesli bar, there may actually, if you're sort of an hour into training, there may not be the blood flow and things at your stomach to digest that and break that down. So the gels can play a role there by getting carbohydrates into the system so it's in the blood and ready to go and your body can keep moving during activity and during that active time. So Similar
That
to
makes
sports
sense.
drinks play that same role as well in just delivering carbohydrates to a working muscle, working system, as well as hydration, electrolytes, that sort of thing. So, and then the
So does that
gels.
mean, yep. Sorry, Sally.
No,
You
that's
mentioned,
all right.
you just mean I'm trying to keep up with there's so many supplements. You
So many.
mentioned the sports drinks. So does that
Yes.
mean the sports drinks array as well?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yep. Yep, that's a sports food. So that's like sports drinks are actually, everyone's like, oh, there's sugar in sports drinks. And it's like, yeah, well, that's the point. So if
Yeah,
you're having them when you're
right.
being active, like you need that energy. It's not just straight like pouring table sugar in. It's a sugar that can be absorbed across the gut to be in the blood, to be next to the working muscles. And then it also has the benefit of providing fluids. So just a total fluid load for hydration and electrolytes to actually retain that fluid. So it's a really good triple whammy with having sports drinks before and during training. Yep.
And from everything you've described, Sally, am I correct if in my thinking is those category A, they really are for the people, there's an end goal, whether it's winning or a personal best or something about performance. But
Progression.
for the average person
Yes.
who's, living a healthy life, it sounds to me like they don't need any of those sorts of things because it's not about, gold medals or it's not about a personal best. It's actually just about
Yeah.
being healthy.
Yes. But I mean, everyone will have their different gold medal. Like, and what's their gold medal to them? In
Yeah.
that, some, like, obviously for these athletes, and I've learned a lot from working with athletes to change my style as a dietitian, like, that's just what they're working towards. It may be
Right.
for someone, their gold medal is staying healthy for their kids or staying active to be agile for their kids or managing their cholesterol because they've got a family history of cholesterol and they want to stay healthy in that regard. So what's important to you and how it's important to show up and present yourself, that's what should be guiding people's choices of whether they should have something or not. Not because someone on the internet told them to have it or there's just a lot going around. How is this going to get me to where I want to be and how I want to feel and how I want to present? And if that's just staying active and feeling energized and being alert and present in the world, it doesn't have to be this end point. Like, there is no end point. Even when the athletes finish and they go to the Olympics, like, there's another goal, there's another bigger
Yeah.
picture. Like, diet
Yeah.
and supplements, it's not something that can be won or finished.
Yeah.
It's ongoing and it's continuous. So by having
Yeah.
something to guide you that is more of an aspirational purpose and something to connect with helps to understand, should I eat this food or not? Should I take this supplement or not? Because is it going to get me closer to what I'm working towards? So if that is just general health and sort of wanting to be well, that can also play a role in deciding what supplements to have on more of a health level.
And I like the way you say that, your gold medal. Can you tell us, it seems to me like our listeners need to know about the B's, the C's, and especially the D's.
Yep. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you much about the D's because if an athlete came to me and said, I want to do doping, I would have absolutely no idea how to help them. Like, it's just so removed that it's not this secret that sports dietitians know, but we just don't want to say. But D
if it's banned, well, then is D banned?
Yes, D are the banned supplements. So if you're an athlete or a person training who is susceptible to drug testing, you absolutely don't want to have any of the banned substances, preferably having supplements that are third-party batch tested.
What does that mean?
Population, yeah, I knew that was coming. The general population won't need that necessarily, but third-party batch testing means the supplement's been tested to be like, yep, this is good, there's no banned substances in it. Sometimes, even if you have a supplement and you're like, well, I've looked at the ingredients and it looks okay, but it's been made on a machine that also makes something that's got a banned substance, there can be cross-contamination and then that supplement. So the third-party batch testing just sort of provides a greater peace of mind that the supplement that they're taking has lower risk to it.
And Sally, would it say that on the label?
Yeah.
It's okay. So
Most
that's
of the
what I
time,
think
yeah.
people need to know about the D's.
Yes.
And if they're taking some supplements, not an A, it's not a B, then all risk to you because you really need to make sure 30-part batch testing. So what are the B's and C's?
Just on D's, and then we can leave them there. If you sort of can't say the word of the ingredient that's in the supplement, it's probably not worth taking. Like if there's
Right.
more, like if it looks like you're reading algebra when you're looking at a supplement, an ingredients list of supplements that may potentially be banned, that's a basic way to go, maybe this isn't for me, because if I don't know what's in it, I'm putting it in my body and I don't know what impact it's going to have. So
Right.
So the B's and C's are probably more in that health space, and it's because they're harder to test for performance. And again, this framework's sort of under the context of, does this supplement help with performance? So this is where we look at a longer sort of stretch of what are we actually working towards? Is it performance or is it just health? And then if I'm healthy, I can perform well. So this is where it's not that they're not effective, but it may not contribute to that. But if we're looking more at health supplements, which is what an extension of this conversation is, of who should have supplements, if you're training a lot, there'll be a sort of greater turnover on the body and greater stress on the body. And then that may introduce things like a need for magnesium or iron and those sorts of things. That's sort of this level here to look at vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, things like that, and the role that they play. So some of them, they're not going to do a lot of damage, but they may not have that impact to sort of really shift the dial in your performance outcome.
Okay. Are there any common ones to be aware of? Another one I hear people talking about a lot is coenzyme Q. So I don't know where does that one belong in the hierarchy?
I don't know. I don't feel a strong need for it. That's one that I think has sort of good sellability in that it's an antioxidant. It's very popular, but there's not necessarily the strong evidence that it will have this impact. It's like it may do this and it may do that. So I don't think there's super strong evidence for it.
Okay.
To be super conclusive, to be like, yes, it does this and it has this outcome, but it's one that covers a lot of areas in being it's good for antioxidant and cell production, and it has a few sort of reported good things. So I think that's what can give a bit of a halo effect too, of like, oh, this one supplement can do a lot of things. Yeah.
So that one sounds to me like it's not an A, it's not a D, but that's going to be that individual variability, and you'd have to self-assess, buy a bottle, use it. If it doesn't make any difference, well, save your money for the food.
Yes. Yep.
Are there any other supplements that athletes ask you about a lot? I think the only other sort of big one that jumps to mind for me, and that I know that people talk about nitrates, but particularly beetroot juice because it's high in nitrates. So what about beetroot juice, and then any other particular ones that athletes ask you about?
Yes, yeah. So beetroot juice is a vasodilator, so it makes your blood vessels get bigger, so then you can get more blood flow in. If there's more blood, there's more oxygen, there's more sort of nutrients to sort of help performance in that regard. So it's whether there's a need for that level of intensity in your training. Similar with another one that we not mention is a beta-alanine, similar to bicarb, that acts as a buffer too. So those really high intensities, how do I sustain them for longer, and how do I get my body to sustain that for longer to be able to continue at this level to sort of really push my body? Again, it's that need in that, yes, while archery is an athlete, they're not going to need a buffer for the type of training that they're doing,
right,
sort of thing. And it's like quite slow and steady pace. So it's not, again, that definition of does an athlete need it or not, it's what training's it doing. So if we look at someone like a rower or a track cyclist who it's like all in, all at once for a short amount of time, that's when you would sort of layer on those sorts of supplements. So again, it's sitting with someone and saying, tell me everything about what you're doing and where you're getting to, or what might be lacking health or performance wise, and then what supplements might we be able to use to be able to fill that.
Can I just ask you a more general question? So we have the nutrient reference values, which is an umbrella term to guide vitamin and mineral requirements for the body. So those requirements and targets are set for the general population. How does an athlete's general requirements for vitamins and minerals compare to us average Australians who are not training, for competition?
Yeah. I mean, it's still like the recommended dietary requirements are still sort of a good baseline to work off for athletes to have that for what they need. Like there's a slightly sort of faster turnover, but like it's not that they're growing older and like turning over more quickly to sort of regenerate their whole bodies. So it might just be if they're dehydrated a lot and they're passing a lot of fluid by dehydrating, hydrating, they might need more water-soluble vitamins and to top up those sorts of things. So it's, again, understanding the person and how they're presenting to see what might they be lacking in to be able to provide supplements for that. But on the flip side of that, athletes need to eat more, and in eating more, they're getting exposure to more vitamins and minerals and through the fruits and grains and calcium and things that they're eating anyway. So sort of with kind of happens organically with their extra energy demands. It's sort of caught up in that and they're covering those bases without thinking, oh, I've got all my extra energy, but I've just left all my micronutrients behind. Like it sort of acts as a whole with that increased demand and captures it all together.
That completely makes sense. And in the show notes, we'll put a link. We have a nutrition assessment tool called the Australian Eating Survey that does calculate those micronutrients. So we'll put a link to that as well. So Sally, before we close, are there any other supplements that you think people need to be aware of generally? I can really see though that, you know, like I've mentioned a couple of times, for people who have their gold medal event or whatever it is they're working towards, would really benefit from a personalised strategy by seeing a sports dietitian Australia. So you have your own website. So does that include how people could find somebody who's got a practice near them? And we can put a link to that in the show notes too.
Sports Dietitians Australia website's got a find a dietitian, so you can sort of put in your state and find someone who's close to you. It might be that you even choose a dietitian or even just Google search up an accredited sports dietitian for triathlon or for marathon running, and you can sort of put your sport in as well. And there might be some dietitians that have got more experience with different types of sport or activity that you're doing.
Good point.
Well.
And Sally, would you say that a lot of them offer telehealth these days?
Yes. Yeah, generally.
Great.
A lot of private practice dietitians do.
That makes it easier. And, you know, and your CBD health in Sydney as well. And you have a practice if people want to see you. So Sally, in closing, is there any final bit of advice? My advice is, you know, if this athlete profile sounds like you, see a sports dietitian. But in closing, is there anything else advice that you'd give people?
Just that more isn't always better. That you know, be smart about, well, yes, like supplements can offer that quick fix to be like, that's my problem, that's an answer, I don't have to think about it. Sometimes you do have to spend a bit of time actually thinking about it, looking at your lifestyle and looking at different changes that might need to be made to be able to get a better outcome. In that, trying not to use supplements as a band-aid way to just put aside all the things that you can't bother dealing with, and then sort of looking at other risks like mega dosing as well. So thinking that, oh, if I have this little bit and it does this good, if I have 3 times as much, I'm going to get 3 times the impact, and being really careful with that to not be exceeding the amount, because that's sort of starting to show up now more as a greater risk for people as well, in that supplements that are safe and effective to have, but then they have far too much of it, the body can't process it, or there's just too much in the system, and then that's actually causing detrimental health problems. So that probably goes back to more of the point that if you can, like, check in with a sports dietitian, an accredited sports dietitian, to be able to just make sure all the parts are aligned, both your physical demands, your training demands, your lifestyle and your health background, your clinical understanding, and then sort of seeing what role supplements can play on top of it.
That's wonderful. Thanks very much for your time today. Sally Walker, President of Sports Dietitians Australia and a sports dietitian who's worked with athletes yourself. Thanks, Sally.
Thanks so much, Claire.